So I'm delighted to say joining us, a friend of ours, a friend of the show, the Evening Standard's very own Jack Rosser. Now, most of you probably know Jack from his sterling work on West Ham for the paper and the Standard website. Big face on West Ham Twitter as well, of course. But for his sins, Jack is in fact a die-hard Saints fan. Jack, brilliant to have you on the show again, mate. The West Ham Southampton game, West Ham first home Boxing Day fixture since we've been at the London Stadium, which is one most supporters are looking forward to. Still none the wiser as to whether it will go on. The latest development from the Premier League. Today, this recording on the 20th suggests that the teams just want to steam on with as many games as they can over the festive period, which suggests our two teams will be going head-to-head at the London Stadium on the 26th. Are you confident, first of all, that the game will be played?
Firstly, I'll invoice you for that introduction once we finish recording. And that... It's so hard to tell, isn't it? I think the Premier League, it would have been fantastic to have been sort of a fly on the wall in that meeting today, that Zoom meeting, because the Premier League as a collective sort of want to try and push on because there's a lot of commercially sort of sensitive things that they want to carry on and keep going. And you also sort of bring in the emotional side of the Boxing Day games being such a big fixture of our footballing calendar. So to knock them on the head would have been quite significant. But there's also a lot of, as there always is with the Premier League, a lot of suspicion and accusations maybe that clubs are using these postponements to their benefit. But I think the drive from the Premier League is to get it going. So unless there is touch wood, unless there is a significant outbreak, both clubs have so far steered clear of it. Southampton... both clubs are very strict with their sort of protocols that are in place. I know Southampton, even before this new wave, had sort of stopped players seeing their families after games and directly after games in the players' lounge and things like that. Stop that sort of mixing. West Ham had a jabs drive at the weekend. So they are on top of it. Southampton are nearly 100% vaccinated already, which makes a big difference. And I think that's the bigger thing. It's not them catching it. It's people they know catching it. If you're double jabbed or triple jabbed, you can go to work. If you're not, then you have to isolate. And that's the bigger problem. It's not players catching it. It's their families going to get it. So I think it will happen. I'm not so confident about what will actually happen once it does go ahead. Southampton have got a terrible record at the London Stadium. I think we won there the first time we played there. And since then, we seem to lose 3-0. Every time we go, which is not a delight to be there when you're covering it and sat in the home end and walking down at half time and listening to all the chants and things like that.
Well, Hasenhüttl, Jack, has been quite vocal in his stance on COVID and vaccinations and stuff like that. So, like you said, I think so has Moisey. So the game, if ever there's a game that's sort of likely to happen, it does look like it's this one. Before, I know James has got a few questions for you about the Saints, their season, and the game in particular on Boxing Day. Before we do, it would be remiss of us, while we've got you, esteemed West Ham reporter as you are, to not ask you what your thoughts on the season so far. You've been to every game bar a couple home and away. I think the last time I bumped into you was away at Genk. You were even there at Rapid Vienna, one of about 40 people in the stand, no doubt. So you haven't missed too many. What have you made of it so far? And as we come to the end of the year as a whole?
It's been fantastic, hasn't it? I'm putting something together at the moment, looking back on the entire year, and the turnaround in 2020 was amazing. To go from going into lockdown, with a point or goal difference, keeping them out of the bottom three, to where they ended the year and what they went on to. But 2021 was sort of where it really all kicked into gear, wasn't it? You start with that game at Everton, where it was, I think it was a horrible game at Goodison on New Year's Day. And then it really kicks on into that run through January, and you end up in Europe. And, there were a lot of questions over the summer. Were they a flash in the pan? Where do they go from here? What sort of happens without Jesse Lingard? And they've exploded and gone on again. The concern now is that injuries and schedule and everything will start to bite back. But every time something happens and you go, well, that's probably West Ham done. They go again, don't they? So it's been a fantastic year. It's been fantastic to cover and see the transformation. There's been some fantastic stories come out of it as well. And I think the overwhelming emotion at the end of the year should be positive. There are a few concerns, around a bit of form and goal scoring and injuries, but I think really you look back across the last year and they've been written off a few times and come back into it. So you should have a bit of confidence that they'll be able to do that again.
Jack, before we move on to Southampton, just a little bit on West Ham's squad depth, because it's always been a bit of a worry. We're seeing a little bit of...
That's the doorbell.
Do you need to go and get that?
I might do. I'll see if it's the missus very quickly, and she's just been lazy. Sorry, chap. 1 second.
What?
This is staying in.
Mm-hmm. Wonder who it could be.
Amazon package around this time of year, 6:15. Yeah, you think so, wouldn't you? Oh, this could be a new feature, couldn't it? Who's at the door? Who's at Jack's door? Yeah. Just ensure that every single time we get a guest on, someone rings on their doorbell, but we're not allowed to know who it is, and we got a guess.
Sounds like a really bad game show.
Yeah. You could. That's something you could see Anton Deck fronting, isn't it? For sure. Yeah. Oh.
Sorry, there he is. She's lost a key.
Oh.
That was the missus. Where you've triggered a new game show for the new feature on the podcast, Jack. Every single guest we have now, we're going to get someone to knock at their door midway through the interview. Me and Jonesy have to guess who it is. But as you were, Jack, about Jonesy's question on West Ham.
Yeah. So where was I? So
depth
on West Ham squad depth, it has been a worry. We've noticed. I don't think we expected it to be so much of a worry in defence, but that's what's happened recently. January transfer window around the corner. Anything you know about potential West Ham business that's coming? Because everyone's looking at Lingard. Looks like he might be staying at United now for weird reason.
Jesse's a difficult one. I think it suits a player that's got 6 months left on their contract to wait until the end of that contract and assess your options. You get a wider choice of club. You also get more money because you're going on a free. So from that point of view, it makes sense to wait until the end of the season. From the point of view where they'll have to look at it in January is if a decent offer comes in from West Ham, obviously the offer has to go in first. But he wants to be in the World Cup squad. And if he doesn't play for Man United in the second half of the season and moves in the summer, that's not a very long time to get into the World Cup squad. So that, you would imagine, will be West Ham's sell. They do. Moyes specifically wants to bring him back to the club, and he wants someone that can bring that burst of energy that Lingard did. So that will be an interesting one to see whether they can sway Jesse, because the intention at the moment is perhaps for him to stay till the end of the season. Not completely decided, but that's sort of the way they're leaning at the moment. And then I think it's very obvious what they want. If they can't get Jesse, they want someone that can fill in that sort of role, whether it be an out-and-out centre forward that can bring some more goals, or someone that can fill in those three positions behind the striker and perhaps step forward, or allow one of those three to step forward and fill in for Antonio when he's not fit, or as it is at the moment, not scoring.
That was supposed to be Vlasic, wasn't it? We're supposed to have that person already. Yeah,
but I think Vlasic is an interesting one because you paid a lot for him, in relative terms, but he's still a young player, and he's one that you sort of look at the two different types of players Moyes goes for. There's the Zumas, Součeks, Soufals that step right in and hit the ground running and are fantastic signings immediately. And then you look at Bowen, who is eased in, Ben Rama, who's been eased in. And,
Fornals was the same.
The jury's still out. Fornals, it wasn't one of his signings, but took that same path. So Vlasic is one that is a long-term investment and could still, he wants to give him more chances. I think we could see him start against Tottenham in the League Cup. They're the sort of games that he wants to give him some chances in. They've obviously got Leeds in the FA Cup as well, should they all go ahead. And that's a chance for him to make his mark, which he sort of needs to. Now he's had those chances. And then a centre-back as well is something they want to look at. Zuma's not as bad as it was first feared, which is good news, but Ogbonna it's a serious injury to have for someone who's 33 and he'll need replacing eventually. Nat Phillips looks a decent fit. He's tall, he's strong, he's the sort of character that Moyes would like, and he's quite clearly and readily available. He said it, Liverpool have said it. So it'll be interesting to see if they do move on that, and if so, how quickly they can move on it, because it's been a sort of hallmark of the recent transfer windows, which have been good, but they've been long and the business has been done late on, which, given the schedule, wouldn't be ideal. And I think they're all aware that they need that if they're going to carry on to hit new heights really across the rest of the season.
Lads, the holidays have come early this year as our partners Manscaped have the gift that keeps on trimming, with a whole host of male grooming products on offer, from the Lawnmower 4.0 to their new refined cologne and everything in between. Manscaped have got everything you need to make sure you're looking more Michael Bublé and less Santa Claus this holiday season. And in the spirit of Christmas, you can get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code WeAreWestHam. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code WeAreWestHam, all one word. Now is the perfect time to get yourself or a loved one the gift of shaving. I am talking about the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. The Performance Package 4.0 is the best in the business. This hygiene bundle includes the Lawnmower 4.0, the Weed Whacker, a pair of boxer shorts, a travel kit, and liquid formulations.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer is waterproof with advanced skin-safe technology to reduce nicks and cuts, and it even has a light to help with all those little dark spots down below. And then there's the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer with its proprietary skin-safe technology that helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs. Also in the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0 is Crop Preserver, which is a spray that protects against chafing, the Crop Reviver, which will ensure things down there remain fresh at all times, and then there's the Foot Duster, which will make even the ugliest of feet, like mine, look and smell lovely, and much, much more. And to top it all off, you even get a shed travel bag so you can carry all your precious Manscaped products in style everywhere you go. So to get your hands on the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0 and to see all the other lovely male grooming products they have on offer ahead of the festive season, head over to manscaped.com today. And remember, get 20% off and free shipping with the code WeAreWestHam. That's WeAreWestHam, all one word, WeAreWestHam. It's 20% off, free shipping at manscaped.com. So go on, make Santa proud and cement your place on his nice list this Christmas by joining the Manscaped movement. Let's talk Southampton, mate.
Do we have to?
Yeah, unfortunately we do. Unfortunately we do. And I'm pretty sure I asked you this last time, but there has literally been no change or development on it. And there was so much promise with Hasenhüttl. I think he was linked with the Spurs job as well after Mourinho, maybe. And there doesn't seem to be much progress there, but he's still seen as a highly rated manager. I mean, is he still the long-term manager to take Saints forward, or is it kind of like, okay, well, how long now before we need to push on now?
The biggest issue is it's a funny situation, I agree, but you look at the squad and the club, and when Pellegrino was there and when Mark Hughes was there, you looked at them and you thought, oh, Christ, we can do better than this. But you look outside of the club now at other managers and think, would they really be better? Gerrard going to Villa is maybe one that makes you think, oh, maybe we could have got Steven Gerrard. But, Lampard's another one that's out there. Would we be much better off with Frank Lampard? You don't know, potentially, but also potentially not.
Gamble, wasn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. And the sort of one thing hanging over the entire club is the ownership that can't spend money, won't spend money, and wants to sell up and be rid of the club. There have been reports that Mr. Gow, who owns the club, has got his own financial reasons for wanting to sell the club and needing to sell the club. But that's the real issue, because a new manager comes in and they're not going to be blessed with, a load of money to go and make it their squad. This is now, after 3 years, a squad that Hasenhüttl has built and wanted. but had to build on a budget. There's a real lack of quality in that group. So the faith is still around the club, inside the club at least, in him. He's questioned a lot by supporters, sometimes rightfully, sometimes, some funny decisions on substitutions and things like that and team selections. Other times it's all a bit daft, and, you have to sort of think about what I've just said and the resource that he's got available, because, I sort of rally against the trope that gets rolled out about Southampton every time, is that you can't just keep selling your best players. You can if you replace them properly. It works if you replace them properly. But at the moment, they don't have the funds to replace people like Danny Ings properly.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it, Jack? Because you look at the table at the moment, Saints 15th, sort of 1 point above Leicester. 1 point above Leeds, who everyone's sort of, I know, albeit that you've got a game in hand over them, everyone's assuming that, they're having a calamitous season by all accounts. You're 4 points above Watford, but they've got a game in hand over you. But yet Everton are only 2 points above you, and Brighton, who were media darlings at the beginning of the season, as were Brentford and Crystal Palace. All three of those teams, Brighton, Brentford and Palace, just 3 points above Saints. All Everton played the same games, Brighton and Brentford game in hand over you guys. It's a strange one, isn't it, how it works out, how you're all in such a tight little bracket. And most people would just sort of assume, oh, yeah, Brighton are having a good season. Yeah, so are Palace. Southampton are having a rubbish season, so are Leeds. But it's barely anything in it, is there?
Yeah, it's always difficult to adjust the expectations. Being in the Premier League a long time now, really came up the same season as West Ham, and the expectations that maybe have been set because of the sort of early success under Pochettino and Ronald Koeman after him sort of shows you a bit of, this is what you could have won when you end up in positions like this. And you look at a club like West Ham, who are kicking on and doing what they're doing, and there are comparisons between the two clubs, but you pick it apart and there aren't really, because West Ham are a club in London with 60,000 seats that they can, when, COVID permitting, that they can sell every week. But the expectations are a bit different, I think, at Southampton, given what JJ was talking about, that this is a project that's been building but hasn't built anywhere over the last 3 years. Relegation scrap after relegation scrap is not much fun. I'd rather it to, finishing 11th every year, I think, and just being.
Would you rather it to Norwich or West Brom, though, where you're actually up and down every year? I sort of know what you mean.
There have been times where I've thought I would quite like a trip around the Championship just to win games, because it has. I was looking before, and I found it quite hard to remember when we last won, and we haven't won since Aston Villa, I think. Yeah, November, which we've won.
A long old slog.
All 3 games we've won this season, and we're 1-0. So it's not been too exciting. So you do have a flirtation with, or maybe go into the Championship and win a few games, but it's nowhere near that simple, is it? Getting back out is very difficult. So yeah, I think we can. We're a club that are quite capable of going on a burst and, changing that narrative around our season. I just don't see it happening on Boxing Day because we have such a terrible record there.
I mean, know exactly how you feel, mate. We've been there, battling relegation and kind of toying with the idea of, well, maybe going down wouldn't be such a bad idea, just so we can experience winning football games. But looking into this weekend, how do you see this one going?
It's difficult. At the moment, it's 2 teams that can't really score. So it's going to be thrilling. It depends who Saints can get fit. Brozier, as long as he's fit and firing, has been a silver lining. Livramento may well have benefited from the weekend off that Saints got against through not playing Brentford. Sorry, that will be a big help because he was fantastic at the start of the season, a real sort of bright spark. And when we signed him, I was told that Hasenhuttl was going around telling everyone that he'd be the best player at the club within 6 months, and everyone sort of laughed him off. And then he was the best player at the club within about 2 weeks.
Is this Livramento?
Yeah.
Oh, right,
yeah. Which for says a lot about our season. That 18-year-old right back's the most exciting thing about it. But he's a very good player. But he's looked a bit tired in recent weeks. And if he's flying and Walker Peters is getting forward and going well, then you might be able to test the back four. But it's then you look sort of everywhere else, and as good as Ward-Prowse is and as dangerous as he can be up against Rice and Souček, that's a battle I don't sort of fancy him to win. And the defence has been quite hit and miss. We started the season with a solid defence, and it's sort of started to slip again. And we've also got a 40-year-old in goal. So there are a lot of sort of unanswerables that I think for Saints to get something and get a good result, a lot of things have to come together at the right time, which they don't often do in Stratford.
Yeah, that is true, mate. It's just such a strange time for West Ham as well. Obviously, with I went to Arsenal in the week, and I was quite disgruntled afterwards. Just like, I didn't offer anything, and then you think, well, a lot of our good work earlier in the season was built from the back anyway. And that Arsenal game, we had 4 different defenders to our first choice back four 3 weeks before that, maybe. When we had Johnson at right back, Zuma and Ogbonna in the middle, and Cresswell at left back. We didn't have any of that. We had Kufal, who, all right, is starting 11 quality, Dawson and Diop, and then Masuaku, who in a back four is just, may as well not be there some of the time. I just, it's just, all I mean is what you're saying about Saints. I think West Ham fans, there's a feeling of going into it in the same sort of higgledy-piggledy sort of frame of mind or state, if you like, of the squad. And it's like, if we can nick 3 points, we'd be delighted, really.
Yeah, and I think West Ham are another one that could benefit from having the weekend off as well, through no fault of their own. They get that time off, and you can maybe try and get one of the fullbacks back. Cresswell's a funny one. That's been worse than anyone thought it was going to be. It's been touch and go for the last 5 games, which is just Moyes' classic style of keeping everyone on their toes. There's a hope that Ben Johnson is either nearly there or all right now, which makes it a real difference as well. Just having that back four, that the balance that Cresswell more importantly brings, and the threat from set pieces that he brings, will really sort of change that confidence in the back four as well. Because, like you said, Masuaku in a back five, he was fantastic, especially
back five,
his
he's
injury.
brilliant.
In a back four, there are some more questions, and I know Moyes has been a bit frustrated with some of his contributions at the back when he does play in a four, which I think is being generous. Both clubs have been hit with injuries in different ways. Saints are struggled to score when they had 5 fit strikers to pick from, and it's become even harder when they've had none. So there's a lot of sort of guesswork going on into who will be fit because of the churn of games. You've obviously got the League Cup to factor in for West Ham as well. A result against Spurs, and you don't, that sort of higgledy-piggledy mindset you spoke about suddenly clears, and there'll be a lot of confidence back.
We're back to being massive again. We're going to win everything.
Exactly. So it can all change very quickly, and it's a funny time of year for how quickly the mood can change.
Absolutely, mate. Well, look, Jack, it's been brilliant having you with us on the show. Just want to say hats off as well for all your coverage on West Ham this year. I know I've certainly enjoyed it. James the same, and plenty of our listeners and anyone who follows us on Twitter normally follows you as well, because you got your finger on the pulse with most things concerning the Hammers. So it's hats off to you for that this year. Just before we let you go, give us a score prediction, and as it's probably the last live episode we're doing of the year, give us your favourite moment of 2021 covering West Ham as well.
That's difficult. Score prediction's easy, 3-1 West Ham, because it always is. The best moment, the Liverpool game, the Chelsea game, they're both fantastic. I think the first, I didn't get to go to Zagreb, but Genk, as strange a place it was, just sort of all the excitement.
Very bizarre, isn't it?
Season. Yeah, at the end of that season, the sort of will they, won't they get into Europe, sort of finally realising that after a season of fans wondering, that was quite a special thing to go and be part of, and to be there and witness. And just, I think the momentum that's built up around the club, and especially this season, there was a novelty to it at the end of last season, and maybe sort of might not get to see this from West Ham for too long. But the sort of shift and the realisation that they're a club that can compete at this level has been quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, look, I mean, it's been the best calendar year, certainly for us as supporters watching the club. And I don't think, Jonesy, I don't think it's any sort of coincidence at all that Jack highlight of the season was Genk away when he did bump into me outside the stadium beforehand. I think anyone can add 2 and 2 and come up with 4 when you hear facts like that, can't they?
Hang around the hospitality and you'll bump into you after your...
So say, Jack, I'm just wondering how big that invoice is that you're sending around, because
I know, good
yeah.
God.
Well, look,
From the
Jack,
Christmas party.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. Well, look, it's been brilliant having you on the show again. Thanks for all your appearances this year, and like I said already, thanks for your work covering West Ham. This brings a lot to what can be a murky place of West Ham Twitter normally. So brilliant having you on. Thanks for joining us.